Monday, January 22nd, 5:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Bellows Junior High School. Monday, January 22nd. First thing is Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. Thank you, everybody who's here. Thank you for one person. Should make any motions a little bit quicker tonight. I'd like to go around and do introductions if we could. Mary, let's start on your side.
Mary Howard Bader, Grafton. Tanya Noyes representing Athens.
Stack, Rockingham.
Jamie Starrell, Westminster.
Rob Welch representing Rockingham.
Andy Haas, Superintendent.
Jason Terry, representing Rockingham.
Deborah Wright, Rockingham.
June Streeter, Westminster.
Priscilla Lambert, Rockingham.
Kelly O'Ryan, Princeton.
David Clark, I represent Westminster.
And we have Jim Vazina online, our business manager. Is he able to?
Yep.
There he is. Hey, Jim.
Jim Vazina, Finance.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who's here. Is there any adjustments to the agenda? Jim?
I'd like to strike number 10 from the agenda. There's nothing to report. Do we have to vote on that?
I'd like to keep it. So if you guys want to strike it, then we're gonna need to take a vote.
Yeah, I'd like to strike it also. Jason, there really is nothing to say except that we're exchanging ideas.
All right, well, let's say a roll call on it then. David, we have an adjustment to the to go into
Okay,
executive
I'll
session.
actually put a motion on the floor on that. And I will move to update the board on negotiations in executive session. And I will speak to my motion when you're ready.
Please.
The last couple of negotiation cycles have taken place largely without the consultation of at least this school board. And that runs contrary to long established practice with this board as well as other boards within the WNESU. And I believe that even when there's nothing to discuss, that we still have topics to discuss, such as how the negotiators who represent the school boards in this district are positioning boards in this district in those negotiations. And I will very briefly cite one item. During the previous negotiation cycle, we gave our teachers, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, Juneteenth. And Juneteenth caused all kinds of issues for many, many school districts in the southern tier because we were an outlier in that we had Juneteenth, and those boards were looking for comparability. I want to state very clearly that I am absolutely a believer in collective bargaining. However, I believe collective bargaining means you give something, you get something, and I'm still trying to figure out what we got in exchange for Juneteenth. So I would very much like to have that conversation, not necessarily about Juneteenth, but where we are going generally in negotiations. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, David. Before I do any other questions, Jamie, I just want to make sure that you're also capturing notes. Thank you.
You know him.
I did. And I didn't see my phone lighting up, so it wasn't a text message. Thank you, Jamie. Any other discussion on the topic? Jim?
If we discuss it, then we're negating our contract of negotiations,
Can you elaborate on that?
our ground rules.
Which one?
Between the association and the school boards.
David?
Yes, sir. How on earth can this board give informed advice and consent to its negotiators if the negotiators cannot communicate with the board? That's, I think, an absurd position to be taken, that we will not discuss negotiations with a school board that has the statutory authority to pay the bill.
Thank you. Priscilla, I'm sorry, I missed you. Please go
That's
ahead.
okay. June is your representative and, yes, the ground rules were that until, and if we ended up in impasse, then we could come back to the board and discuss details. To that point, we really are not free to discuss the details of what is going on. We really are not at a point. We have exchanged one proposal. That's all we've done. And so until we hear more from them and they hear more from us, there really is nothing more than just saying that we've exchanged. So, we've said that in open session, that's where we're at. That's, we can listen to your ideas if that's what you want to do. If the board wants to go into exec session, as as negotiation team, I'm sure June as your representative could listen to what your ideas are, just like I have listened with my board to their ideas. I know what they told me in the beginning. I know where they stood on those things, and I certainly am aware and follow through on what they told me in the beginning as far as what I present and talk about with the team.
Can I ask you
But
a
other
follow-up
than
question on
that-
that? So when you said that your board, you mean Rockingham, correct? Just for the audience.
Rockingham, yes.
So did they tell you, did they solicit or tell you what they wanted in open session or executive session?
They did an executive session before we had ground rules and said that looking at the contract, that these were their ideas.
Okay, thank you. So anybody else this side? Sorry. Jamie, go ahead.
Oh, I'm curious what Andy Haas has any input for us on this concept.
Andy?
Discuss, yeah.
You're-
I mean, what they're sharing is, that is the ground rules that were established. I don't know what more I could add. As far as. I mean, I can't disclose what's being discussed by either party, but you're asking.
I guess I just mean like the idea of discussing this in executive session as was proposed.
I mean, it's certainly within your rights as a board to have executive session to discuss, I mean, but based on ground rules, as Priscilla just said, I mean, the board can share their thoughts with their negotiating, number on what they would like to see. But based on the ground rules, I think it would be challenging for the, member to disclose, what was actually being discussed.
I didn't hear the end of that. Sorry, to disclose what?
To disclose what was being discussed in
Thank you.
detail, so.
My only thinking is that this board has not given their ideas or what they think we should not go, particularly looking at money. What percentage above which we would think would be a no-go. That has not been done. We don't know where that's going or what direction they're headed in. And I've been on negotiation teams for municipality and the school, and I don't think it's appropriate to not let the boards know what direction you're headed in, because we already just passed a budget. We have reasons to wish to stay within that budget, and we need to know what's going on. So, yeah, I understand what you're trying to say, although I don't know that that's appropriate, since the body of the board has to pass anything you offer. And just as David had said, I don't know if we've gotten anything in exchange for the last negotiation of the last few years, in exchange for what was given. That is supposed to be what negotiation is about. Instead, it appears that for the most part, the boards give, but they do not receive. And I think that that part is important. And I understand where you are, but remember, you're a member of this body. And this body is interested in knowing what direction the negotiations are going. It's confidential. And that's something that we can't discuss with anybody else when it comes out, but it would be nice to know where you're headed. And if you're not going to say any of that, I have concerns about the negotiating team myself, but in the end, the negotiating team should hear what the board is interested in providing, where they think would be acceptable and not.
So, does anybody want to call the questions? Because we're still on the adjustment to the agenda.
Let's call the question.
All
So David was going to vote, have not voted, and no, he made the motion but he had the motion. to.
David, can you
Leave
restate
it
your
on.
motion again, please?
My motion is to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. I'm actually taking a roll call on this. Mary,
Aye.
Tanya,
Yes.
Mike,
I abstain.
Jamie,
No.
Rob,
No.
Deb,
Aye.
Jim,
No.
Priscilla,
No,
David?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. I have 4 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4 noes. 1 abstain. That mean I'm the tiebreaker? I'm a yes. Any other adjustments? All right, communication and public comment. I don't see anybody on, well, I do see people online, but I see some people in the audience, so
I'll check, I'll keep checking online. If someone raises their hand.
I don't know who had their hand up first. Paul or Mary? Mary, why don't you? Yes, please.
Just a point of order, is there a certain number of minutes for this?
Thank you, Rob.
Just so
Appreciate
that
that.
we're all clear on the general expectation.
Do we have a number of minutes for these?
That's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
because I think each time it varies. I would like something consistent for not only our board, but for the community, so they know when they come in, sort of what the parameters are.
Rob, you're absolutely correct. I should have stated at the beginning. I think 3 minutes would be sufficient tonight with the amount of people that are here. And customarily, we don't respond to the public comment. So, Mary, please go ahead.
First of all, I want to say that I appreciate all the time and effort that the members of this board and all the boards of the WNESU put in. I've always been one that supports the budget. I've attended many board meetings and a few budget meetings throughout the year, so I'm extremely disappointed that several members of this board did not support the administration's proposed budget, especially in light of Act 127. As I understand it, Act 127 was designed to give school districts the time they need to adjust to how the state would fund education in the future. Additional time would allow the administration to investigate creative ways to maintain a level of education that supports all students. Yet members of this board chose to push through a budget that does exactly the opposite, cut vital positions. You had a room full of people at the last meeting asking you to reconsider the 3.5% increase that you put forth. Mr. Obahoski made the point that this community has only once voted down a budget. They've always been education friendly. The board then came back with a higher budget and it passed. And yet there were members of this board who chose not to trust the taxpayers. A very valid argument was made by Rob Welch, which was to do what many other school districts are doing, to look at this issue more closely, take your time, see what the state does in year one, and have a plan in place for the next several years. And again, there were those that apparently already had their mind made up and chose not to change their mind. I close with the fact that I was both shocked and alarmed at the foul language and the sentiment that I heard during director's comments. It was particularly disturbing to me to hear what one board member felt about the education students are getting here. I say, shame on you for speaking about the high school with the language that I heard, whether it is your opinion or not. I hope that none of the kids heard what you said about their school. I have stood up on the stage on class night and awarded thousands of dollars in scholarships to students going on to higher learning in not only competitive schools such as Dartmouth, Boston College, Stanford, Northeastern, Union, University of Michigan, etc., but highly sought out technical schools as well. I've been part of the interview committee for these scholarships, and students answered thought-provoking questions thoughtfully and eloquently, making our choices extremely difficult. 70% of students here attend some type of post-high school education, according to the BFUHS website, with 5% taking a gap year. We have a 94.3% graduation rate. So don't talk to me about a quote-unquote crappy education or in the SHI, and I'll let you finish the expletive education. Another board member called out the teachers by saying that they only show up when the budget is being discussed and saying that they have quote-unquote selective outrage and proceeded to call it bull, and I'll let you finish the rest of that colorful expletive. The implication of that statement is that teachers were not bothered when they read or heard that students cannot read at an official level. That is an insult and outrageous. If teachers didn't care about the sex students, they wouldn't be teaching. They'd most likely be working in the private sector, making a whole lot more money. I've seen what teachers do day out to help students be successful. I've been in classrooms both as a teacher and a substitute, and unless you have done the same, you have no right to imply any such thing. Whether there are problems or not, you should be ashamed of yourselves for using the foul language that you used, and you owe the teachers, students, administration, and public an apology for speaking about the school that you represent with such language. I sincerely hope that there are repercussions for those board members. In closing, I urge the voters to get out and vote no on the proposed budget.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody else, Mr. Reese?
Yeah, Paul Reese from Bellows Falls. I'll make it quick. I actually thank every board member for every challenge that you have gone through between COVID, the maintenance issues, the roof issues, everything. I appreciate it. And I thank you for adjusting the budget. So it's friendly for the taxpayers with all the issues you're facing. But one thing that concerned me on the roof, you know, being employed here 18 years, I only remember patching the roof twice with a vinyl type rubber patch. When I read that 65 holes were there, I says, how could that be? But I'm not gonna get into it. But as a maintenance guy, I did go up on the roof once every summer and cleaned every drain out and buckets of pine needles, tennis balls, pine cones. So, but like you said, I'm concerned about doing the roof in February. The reason I say that is when I walked on the roof in the summer, it's rubber vinyl. And there were areas that you had to walk slow when I changed the roof units. And when you got up near the seams, you didn't want to step because they would rip and tear. So I'm very concerned that kind of project in February, because when you step on it, my old boss, Don Astley, years ago, says you don't go up on the roof in the winter. So that vinyl will rip near the seams and that, but that's all I wanted to give you input, and doing a good job. I'll get out of here.
Anybody else? Mr. Roby, come on up.
Where should I stand?
Anyway, this is on
Doesn't
the Alice
matter.
can hear you, it's great.
This is fine with that.
I got you, right
Okay. Members of the board, for those who do not know me, I'm Justin Obi, coordinator of social studies department here at the high school, and I've been working here for 20 years. I'm here today on behalf of the teachers at BFUHS. I spoke during public comment at the January 8th meeting on behalf of the students and the opportunities that they were going to lose due to, at the time, the budget committee's proposed cuts. Many of my colleagues and also community members spoke out against proposed cuts, and that would have a negative impact on our students. And that was the phrase that almost everybody used, negative impact on students. To my disappointment, the budget committee's proposal passed, even though Superintendent Haas and Principal Orion both articulated that they did not support that budget. At the close of that meeting, during director's comments, Mike Stack stated that he was disappointed that the only time teachers come to meetings is when the budget is being discussed. When the news was released that we have students who can't read, I didn't see any outrage. I call it selective outrage, and it's BS. Talk about a slap in the face to the teachers in this district. I generally do not come to meetings because I have many other commitments and trust that my superintendent and principal are doing what's best for our school. Just so you know, I'm missing my daughter's basketball game right now because of this, because I feel it's important for our teachers to be stood up for. It is comments like this that further drive a wedge between the distrust of teachers and the board. It is comments like this that have driven many teachers out of our district to go work in other districts over the recent years. It is not selective outrage. It is appropriate outrage that comes out when decisions are negatively impacting our students. As for the statement when the news was released that we have students who can't read, I don't see any outrage. First of all, they can read, but a portion of our students really do struggle with reading. So there's a clear and distinctive difference there. Secondly, and I can only speak for myself, I didn't come because it was not news to me. As a veteran teacher, I've dealt with all types of learners. And reading difficulties is one of the many learning difficulties we deal with on a daily basis. Every single day we deal with reading difficulties. Honestly, I was happy that it was brought to the board's attention because I thought the board might understand better how hard it is for many of our students to be successful in school every single day, and how difficult it is for a teacher to provide an equitable education for all of them. Again, I'm only speaking for myself here, but I did show up at a board meeting on April 24th, 2023, after the board arbitrarily voted on April 10th of that year to cut a social studies and math teacher after the budget for them had already been passed by the voters. I spoke on that day on behalf of the students, for they would have lost a lot. In the school board's decision to reverse that, I'm still forever grateful. So you can say that I have selectively come to board meetings, but it's to support the students and the staff at the school that I consider home. I am a passionate person and dedicated teacher, and unfortunately, it is comments like this that make working in this district more difficult. It is very hard to walk in here every single day and work with these wonderful students with a feeling that you are not valued by all of the people that make decisions that impact our school. I am sure that such comments
make the jobs of our administration much harder, as they then have to help faculty and staff members to try to focus on their job that we are passionate about, without worrying about if members of the school board are going to devalue them again. Now, I'm gonna leave this meeting, but please don't take my walking out as selective outrage, but as a dedicated father trying to catch the fourth quarter of that basketball game I mentioned earlier. And then after, I'm gonna go home and try to decompress while I prepare for day 2 of this semester with our wonderful students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. Anybody else in the audience? Sir?
Hi, Jenny Perry. I didn't come prepared with anything, but I would like to say, I feel it's very unfortunate that much of the press that our school gets and our district gets is related to the discord of this board, maintenance issues and adult challenges. I would encourage people here and on digitally participating, people to celebrate the good that is happening here. Our kids are getting a very negative rap, for lack of a better term, because I'm nervous, but there's so much good going on. Student council donated hundreds, if not thousands, if Mr. Roby hadn't left, he could tell us, for a food drive, plus monetary donations. There's athletes succeeding. There is big things happening in our district, and it's very unfortunate, and I feel sad for our students who are working hard, and the teachers who day in and day out support them to be success. None of that is acknowledged. So I would really, give a shout out to someone in particular who tends to pick up negative stories and shout those across the internet. And I know positive stories don't always get the same attention or clickbait, but there's so much good happening here and it is overlooked. So I would encourage us all as adults to try to put energy into a more positive thing and, try and make decisions that improve the conditions and the experiences for our kids.
Thank you. Anybody online? Andy?
Not seeing anyone.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for your public comments. Definitely are heard and, they are impactful. Thank you. Next up, we have to review and approve board minutes for January 8th. Anybody like to make a motion on these minutes? Jim?
I'll make a motion to approve with corrections. On page 3 of 6, at the top, it says Kelly Orion, I feel that 3.5% budget cut will have a negative impact. It wasn't a cut, it was a 3.5 budget proposal. Overall, so I don't think that I think this word cut should be stricken from that. Under E on that same page, it says announce tuition rates / possible action -Andy, OP. I don't know what OP is supposed to be for. It was just a finger slip. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Jamie?
What page was the OP when I was?
3.
Page 3.
That's on page 3 too.
Yeah, it was
Letter E.
letter E. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And I'm sure Tara heard them out there as well. Anything else? Minutes? So we have a motion on the floor to accept these with those corrections. David, how do you vote?
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. On to next. I know.
Okay.
Up next, we have some unfinished business to do. So we had some things that we brought to policy and some of this is informational, but we do have one possibly for action. Priscilla, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk about the policy stuff, if you don't mind, please.
The committee met on January and prepared the class size policy for posting. It was ready for posting on that Friday, but Nicole had trouble with the PDF file, and so it was finally posted on January 18th. it won't be ready to vote on until the 28th. Generally, what we did was we, did a listing of, and saying that the students that were assigned, the scheduling would be based on the class size minimums. And Kelly would look at those by June 1st. To see if any of those classes did not have enough students to run and kind of adjust anything that needed to be at that time. We followed her proposal except for the AP, which we put 5 as the minimum, excluding calculus, and it is possible that when it comes to the board, we'll want to adjust that for the number for calculus, but she also provided optimal sizes that are in the policy. You can find the policy online at this time, so it'll be ready to post. The next meeting of the policy committee will be January 31st at 12:00 noon. The agenda will include the non-resident student, the entering students numbers, the student substitute policy, and we'll talk about graduation credits at that time. Those are all things that were referred to the policy committee.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I heard you, Priscilla. You said the 28th of this month, January, we can vote on this current policy.
Anytime after the 28th, it has to be posted for 10 days.
And then on the 31st, you're going to go over the other policies, correct?
Right,
January?
January 31st.
And you said 12:00, but where are you
At
meeting?
12:00. Right now, we're looking at whether we're gonna be at the middle school or up here. It depends because, what spacing we can get for that. So that warning should be out, I would assume, by tomorrow.
And then, thank you for doing all this, Priscilla. So after the 31st, then what happens?
When we agree on a policy, and basically what I use is consensus, because it's really important that whoever's meeting there agrees with the policy that we're doing, and then we will make sure that it's in the right form and it will be posted. Then you'll need 10 days to be able to, before you can vote on it. And we'll let the board know if we posted one.
Jason, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm so new. Who else you keep saying we, who is on the committee?
Jamie Storrow is on the committee.
Just 2 of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because then it comes back to it, and if anybody else wants to come, their opinion is also taken into account at any of the meetings.
And I just want to, the policy tends to be an SU policy. And so therefore it's made up of representatives of all the different districts. But because this is a very specific high school policy, that's why you're down to just a couple people.
So I have something from Sean Toohey on the policy personnel. I just want to make sure that this is in line with what you said. It says under statute, you have to give the public notice. You are adopting it at least 10 days before you adopt it. So the 31st, so 10 days after that, we can adopt it. Is that correct?
Probably, you have to post it. We do it
Post it.
10 days from when it's posted.
10 days. from when it's
Because that way the public gets to look at it and they get to also comment.
How long is the time frame from the time you adopt it to the time you post it?
It's 10 days.
So after they post it, if we post it on the 1st, you should be able to discuss it and ratify it on the 12th, which is your next meeting.
So that's the next meeting, that's when we would
2/12,
vote on.
Yeah,
2/12.
and you could vote on both of these policies.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Vote.
David, let me flaunt my ignorance. Where are these proposed policies posted?
Nicole posts them online, and if you go to our policy section, you should be able to.
Okay, so they're posted on the WNESU website?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so nothing voting on tonight. Thanks for the information, Priscilla. I just want to say, good work with, the one so far, from what I read, it looked pretty in line with what the administration wanted to do. And Jamie, also, thank you for doing what you're doing. Appreciate that. Any questions for Priscilla or Jamie? All right, thank you. Up next, unfinished business with staff absences. I put this on the agenda and just for an informational, I just want to make sure that you know, it's a struggle with absences from staff, just as long as it is from students, but, just wanted to see if something going forward in the future, if there's something we could do as a board, along with administration, that when all else fails, we don't just have kids, in the library without, you know, adequate, one-on-one or whatever, you know, teaching. And I think that's important, because it's, you know, to me, and how my brain works, it's kind of the same thing as just being online. If you're just gonna give them this time and then just, you know, your own free will. So I just wanna, you know, I think it's important that we do that. And I know administration here is working really hard to do that. And, you know, people get sick and there is contracts. So just like my work or anyone else's work, we'll have those same issues. So, you know, so I just wanted to mention it, and hopefully we do something in the future to support and we come up with a solution, because the kids need to be educated. That's the bottom line. That's what we're here for. Any questions on that? I just want to move forward. Okay. Update on administration recommended graduation credits. So again, that goes back to policy. It's not ready. And you know, I just wanted to, you know, it was just a reminder from the board to you, Kelly, by you know, February 1st. Hopefully you were going to give us a couple of meetings ago was your recommendation for what graduation requirements would look like, so that we could you know, help and support you and make things you know, systems and procedures, and you know, kind of keep moving forward. So that was all of that. So there's nothing really to discuss on that. Just a gentle reminder. So thank you. I know you're busy, so hopefully no more catastrophes. New business for discussion. So financial update from Jim. How this got on the agenda was we had a WNESU meeting last Wednesday. Is that right, Jim? So Mike? And so we got some information from the WNESU about their financials, and I'm hoping Jim could tell this board how bleak it looked, and how it's going to affect us, because I think it's good to get it right from the horse's mouth instead of me. So Jim, if you could fill us in on the update, outstanding penalties, and then a bond update.
Jim, you're muted. Sorry.
Jim, you're still muted.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks, Jim.
Okay. So, and I'll let Andy chime in, but certainly the challenges are that the state of Vermont is withdrawing from special education support. And I hope you know that we still are obligated by law, federal law, state law, to educate all students under the special education. And again, that's challenging, because we're not able to always hire teachers now with the competitive nature of salaries and wages. We're competing against other districts, and it may cost us more, because right now, to fulfill some of that, we're contracting with some agencies in trying to fulfill the needs that students have with special ed teachers. So again, when we look at all of special education, we are having a shortfall in what we budgeted, and more expenses because there are more students that have come in. And I guess I want to make sure you understand that when we have to tuition out some students, and there are special schools, we may have to pay $150,000 for one student. And it's kind of difficult, you know, because we're trying to balance the students and the cost. and providing the right education. That's what we're required to do. Now, again, I think the SU, who is responsible for this whole expenditure, you know, is trying to make sure that we're meeting that requirement. And it costs. And we're in a deficit situation with our special education costs. And I'll just mention, in transportation, as you know, we entered into a contract for equipment because the SU had not purchased new buses for a number of years. So we essentially have a $200,000 deficit for our equipment and in transportation. So we're struggling to balance out. I mean, we're certainly in a tight situation. Again, I think our superintendent says, hey, we need to do what we can to constrain costs and constrain purchases at this time. Now, I will say this, and just to give you an update with Kelly, you've done an awesome job with the high school expenditures. I think you're right on track, and it looks like we're very well balanced.
Jim, before we move on to the next topic, do you know the number what the WNESU is for deficit?
The right now, I mean, I don't know that it means a lot, but the number that I'm going to give you is probably 150,000 deficit. And again, that can change a lot. Stacy is looking at what we have encumbered, both in salaries and contracted services.
Any questions for Jim before I move on to the next topic? I'm sure there is some. Deb?
Is this number what's impacting our warning? The
No.
monies that
No.
come back to you?
That's next year, right, Jim?
That's correct. That's next year. Now, and Deb, you gave me the opening, so I'm going to take it.
Do it, yeah.
I did talk with Ron Smith. And I said to Ron Smith that in the future, and I don't care what it takes, but we have to have a final printed audit by September 30th at midnight. And I don't care what he has to do, and he indicated he's hired 22 more people, but we have got to have a completed audit as of September 30th. We cannot be doing this in January. This just doesn't work for anyone. And the information is not always reconciled as it needs to be.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to ask Mike Stack a question if the board allows. Mike, do you remember what the percentage from this year's WNESU that we were assessed in this current budget?
My recollection was the increase was in the 20% range. And if we increased nothing else in the budget, that alone was going to be a 6% increase in the budget. So that's a pretty hard pill to swallow.
So would you say that that it's definitely a challenge to offset the WNESU expenses for this high school?
Absolutely.
And so how do you think next year's deficit's gonna affect that?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but
I hate to ask you the question.
I hate to give you the answer. It's not good. The bottom line is the defunding of special ed is going to continue. We lost politically on Act 173. 127 does not look so bad for us from the standpoint of the impact of the change of the student counts, et cetera. Jim is working through the numbers in terms of what that's gonna do to the tax rate. You know, we obviously have ongoing building issues that we're gonna have to deal with. I mean, you know, God bless Kelly, but Kelly's been handed a lot of things that have been neglected for a long time. And she and Andy are trying to resolve those. Those are a challenge, but then the question becomes, what do? Do we flow that all through down to the taxpayer? Buzzkill here. The tax rate in Rockingham is probably gonna go up somewhere in the neighborhood. The homestead property tax rate this year is going to go up roughly, I'm gonna call it 13% year over year. So those people that are already struggling because of inflation are gonna be looking at a pretty big bump in their property taxes. So, and, oh, by the way, the state of Vermont just came out the other day and said, we've got about $7 billion of building expense over the next 20 plus years that we're gonna have to deal with. These issues aren't going away. Again, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's the reality that we're gonna be facing on all of our budgets.
So a deficit next year, so I make sure I hear that correctly, it's not gonna help, and we gotta do something about it today. If we can.
These cost challenges are not going away, period.
So didn't something else come out from the state, Mike, as far as the powers to be and whoever the legislative is what? I know there's a lot of discussion between the 5% and 10%. What did the state come out with and say recently last week? They provided a document that's out there on the state, if you want to look at it.
I don't know if you want to get into this, but I believe, and Jim, you're much more experienced than I am. The state is in disarray right now as a result of the passing of Act 127. Great intentions, but the results have been bottom line chaos. And just like PCBs, they dropped this on us in the middle of the budgeting process, almost making it impossible to know where you are going to come out. What is your town property tax rate going to look like? We tried to do a middle of the road budget, mid-single digit increase, no cut budget. And even with that, we're looking at double-digit increases to our town property tax rate. So I think the politicians are scrambling as we speak. I've heard that they're gonna have meetings in Montpelier the next few days, specifically on 127. I understand from Andy, he's been asked to participate, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, on the review boards that they're gonna set up to look at budgets that came in high, along the lines of people attempting to utilize the Act 127 to inflate their budgets, consume the ESSER expenses, et cetera. I mean, it's chaotic. I mean, it's really pretty horrendous.
I find it a little difficult, though, that you're saying that they're trying to inflate their budgets when in our case, if we wouldn't inflate our budget, it would have increased, but that was to keep it at the status quo to absorb some of that increase. I feel like that's a little unfair to say that people are inflating their budget.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, you can.
We did towns across the state.
I'm not saying that we did,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but even if we just increased it to the amount to keep us at status quo, I wouldn't say that that's inflating our budget. That seems like malicious intent to increase and get more out of the system. We were trying to keep it at where we were at
Exactly.
status quo. I don't think that that's saying that we're inflating the budget. That seems a little,
We didn't go for that. I totally agree with you.
I mean, across the board, to say that to any other school district that was faced with that challenge, to say that they're inflating their budget seems a little
That's
callous.
what the politicians are telling us. Kornheiser released a letter the other day saying this is not what 127 was meant to be, kind of castigating a lot of towns that ran double-digit increases in a world that has 3% inflation to be running budgets up and not being fiscally responsible. That's the definition of, inflating your budget.
Rob,
Yeah, I would like to know, I would like to hear from Jim on this, and Mike, all due respect. As a board member here, let's talk about our budget. I think to bring up other schools around the state, I think is very disrespectful. And I feel like I would like to hear from our superintendent, our principal, our finance person to get this information. I feel like there's a play here to get information out, and I'm not quite sure where it's going. So Jim, can you speak on some of the stuff Mike has talked about?
Hold on, Jim, before you go, Priscilla has her hand up. Unless you have anything else.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment first that our budget is below 5%. The letters that have come out state that what they're going to do is set up a committee to review those towns that are over 5%, just to make sure that they are not doing anything as far as saying, okay, we have a 5% limit where we want to make sure. That doesn't mean they'll find anything wrong in what any of those budgets have done, but that's the purpose for doing that. But the other reason I had my hand up is I think that Jim mentioned 150,000 for one student to be sent out, but that's still an exceptional charge, and I still believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but that we still, I think it's over 55,000, we get that money from the state. Is 55,000 the right figure, or is it different? Maybe Andy can comment. So some of that is to be seen also. No, they've never funded special ed properly.
Go ahead.
So I just want to clarify a couple things. So one, I'm on a task force to look at what would set the criteria for a district that spent over 10%. So I'm not on a committee that's going to be reviewing anyone, but we're setting the parameters for what would trigger a review. So, and JV, there is indication that some districts are using it to their advantage. So that's why the task force was put together to advise the secretary. As far as additional expenses, I believe it's $60,000 to $65,000 now in there. But I also just want to remind the board that there are students that are attached to dollars when we talk about special education, but also regular education. But we're a small community. And so when we talk about the cost of special education, and there's reference to a student going out of district, or we talk about it costs too much to educate a certain student or students, there are students and there are families that are attached to that. And the harm that goes out to those families, I can't even measure. And so I just ask that we use some level of constraint when we refer to them. Especially costs are expensive, but there are students attached to those costs. So I just ask for that.
Thank you, Andy. David?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
If you're a member of this
Special
school
ed is
board,
really important.
if you're a member of this school board, you have the undated letter which came out Friday from Emily Bornheiser, who's House Appropriations, and Ann Cummins, who's Senate Finance. Explains their concern around the wormhole that they built into Act 127. I'm going to save this for director's comments, but I think this is probably the time to bring it up. Very simply put, the intent of the 127 hold harmless threshold between a 5% school budget increase and a 9.9, actually 10%, get away with 9.9 increase, was to allow towns that have what we call excess taxing capacity, which are towns like Stowe, where because the weights for kids who are more expensive to educate have been set, we have discovered through research a little bit low, sometimes grossly low. Those towns like Stowe are going to be losing their excess spending capacity, or excess taxing capacity rather. And the intent of the hold harmless above 5% was to cushion the blow for those towns like Stowe, which have that excess taxing capacity. However, unfortunately, when the bill was written, the writers of the bill never considered the fact that, if it was gonna be a hold harmless for towns with excess spending capacity, it would be a hold harmless for all town school districts, unless there was language which excluded their taking advantage of that. That's exactly what has happened. The districts, we're an exception, in many corners of Vermont have whacked those budgets right up now because the way 127 is written, that hold harmless only is available in future years if you take advantage of it now. Districts which returned a responsible, and we can all argue over what a responsible school budget looks like. We've heard some opinion about that in communication and public comment earlier. But towns which return budgets under 3.5% do not have the option to continue to avail themselves of the hold harmless. And unfortunately, as has been pointed out before, a town which exceeds that 5% hold harmless threshold, it's not free money. Somebody pays for it. It comes out of your left-hand hip pocket in terms of property tax, and what's going to make up the difference between the property tax and what it actually costs to fund education is going to come out of your right-hand pocket. That's reality. That letter from Senator Cummings and Representative Kornheiser is in your inbox now because I sent it to you just before the meeting with a small explanation. There will be a hearing in which they are going to solicit public input on March 25th, on January 25th, and it ought to be pretty interesting because they will be attempting, I'm talking about Representative Kornheiser and Senator Cummings, they will be using that as an attempt to job on school districts which exploited that loophole that I refer to as a wormhole, but there's nothing they can do about it until they change the legislation, which is very likely. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, David. Have you ever hand up? No. So I just wanted to just clarify how I read it. Basically, anybody that tried to game the system, and there was plenty of people that when we were doing the budget process that suggested that anything over 5% would be okay because we wouldn't get in trouble. Those districts are now being audited or will be audited potentially. So that's all I have to say about that. Jim, sorry to get away from you for a minute. Thank you. Thanks for your update on that, and we really appreciate that. Can you talk about the outstanding penalties, and is Mr. Smith available tonight?
He is not available tonight, but I just want to say, in regard to the outstanding penalties, this deals with the IRS. And again, we're still, this was one that happened back in 2019, COVID time. And there was a form, which is called a 1094 form. And it deals with ensuring that each individual had some sort of health coverage that was either purchased or bought through their employer. And they've since done away with the 1094 requirement. But they still are demanding, and this is, when I say demanding, I think this was around a $480,000 fine for not getting it in a timely way. And when I say that, we had submitted it in 2019, and it went into the IRS, but there was some box that was not checked, and therefore they didn't accept it. And so, at that time, I think there was dealing in the middle of March, the governor, said, listen, I want everybody out of their offices and schools. We're shutting down. And so that was for a 3-month time frame. And that was explained to the IRS, and we requested a waiver of penalties. And at that time, we're still waiting for it to be resolved.
Jim, can I ask you a question on that before I open it up?
Yep.
Was that just for the high school or WNESU?
That was for WNSU district-wide, all districts.
What was the number on that? What's the penalty number?
cost, the penalty
Yeah.
number, and I'm just gonna use a round number because I don't have the paper with me, but it was around 470,000, 80,000.
And how does that number affect? Well, it affects the kids, but how does it affect this high school?
If and when the penalty was assessed by the IRS, each district would be sent an invoice based on the assessment percentage that they have. And if you're saying, what did the high school pay? We would assess it at 30.4%.
But if and when.
Yeah, what, sorry, Deb, ask that question?
Yeah, the question is if and when, Jim, you and I have had that conversation about this
Yes.
before. It's just sitting right now.
Yes, I believe, and again, if we get, if they refuse to waive, we go through an appeals process. And again, it may take another 6 months, 8 months in the appeals process. I just want to say, in talking with Ron Smith today, he said he has 4 other districts that are under similar situations. And he says, I'm making an appeals letter process available to you. And he says, I'll copy you on it.
Jim, why are we at 30.4%? How come it's not socialized equally?
And again, I think it's up to the SU board to determine that. I just, the only thing that I'm offering is the assessment and the percentage of assessment that each district was given at the time. But listen, it can vary however you want to do it.
Any questions for Jim?
Don't remind me, did you get your answers? You had asked Jim for information.
I don't think he did.
I did not, yeah, when I was.
It's been a while.
We're skipped
Thank
on
you,
to
Deb.
item number 2 already. Thank you, though.
Yeah.
Jim, can you answer Rob's question? Rob, do you want to repeat your question? Make sure you get that.
Jim, just wanted to get your input or feedback about, from finance office of the SU, what is Act 127 looking like from your perspective?
I will say, Rob, when I'm giving any information regarding our budget, I will give the expenditure side, the cost, and give a comparison of where we were this year to where we're presenting for this coming year. I really have no idea of how bad the state will, what they'll do to unravel the cluster that they have. And I will say, because I've been asked that, and for me, the best thing that we could do is on the front page of our annual report is put, if you need to know how your budget affects your Vermont school property tax, please call the Vermont State Treasurer, and I don't know who that is, but at this number and this email address. And if you want to contact your state legislators, this is who it is. This is the telephone number. And again, I hate to say this, but how can you possibly ask taxpayers to fund something that you do not know what they're going to pay? And there's nobody here. You can talk the 5% and yeah, we went up on the CLA, we went down on the CLA, the yield has changed. We don't know how this whole thing is going to roll out. We have no idea.
State of Vermont did the same thing with the PCBs. They had no clue what was gonna happen. And now
No.
they're trying to backpedal.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. How about a bond update, Jim?
Bond update, the bond bank will be going out in February, and monies will be, I believe, available in the March timeframe.
So will we ready?
June, does that answer your question? This is your agenda.
So we will be ready to go ahead with the roof in March.
Are you asking? like,
Yeah.
So we've
I'm
notified the bond bank of that we want to go out for bond and all of that stuff, so we're proceeding as on schedule, if that's what you're
Okay,
asking.
so that will come back to the board to sign or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not gonna get that bond until,
March.
no, much later than March. The actual dollars and it will take some time to flow, if that's what you're asking.
But Jim just said he said money is
Money
available
is
in March.
available in March.
Right, it means you go out for the bond and they get everything approved. So
secure
it
the
should be-
bond.
Yeah, you secure it.
Securing the bond, okay.
So I don't know the
Not
actual date of when you're gonna get a piece of paper to sign.
Okay. The other question, and this was a two-part thing, it goes along with the roof HVAC that we're doing together. Andy, I was wondering if you had gotten any response from the state of Vermont. You were going to try to get them to agree upon, there had been some hints that the state of Vermont may extend the ESSER funds from September to whenever because of our PCB issues. And I wondered if you had any traction with that.
No.
Okay.
Deb, you have a question?
Yeah, for Jed before he splits, which, like I said, I still want to understand why the Article 6 on our warning is going to go from $533,000 down to $377,755.17. So since Ron Smith is not here, do you have an understanding of that, Jim? Why it's gone down $160,000 approximately?
Well, I don't have a detailed, but I can tell you there were a number of changes, such as that unemployment for 140, and there were a number of other entries and adjusting that had to be done. And I will say this, and I hope every board member will eventually hear me, but September 30th has to be the end final date. And that's not, well, it's close or we're trying to do the best we can. That's an absolute. September 30th, come heck or high water, we've got to be able to achieve that date. I mean, everything flows from that audit report, everything. And we, we've been so far out of sync from where that has to be. And that has got to be corrected. If nothing else happens with the finances, that has got to be changed.
Hold on, Mike. Jim, I remember Deb asking back in September, or maybe sooner, or maybe a little bit later, where was the audit? And it's coming. So you don't need anything from this board. You need from the auditors, correct, by September 30th?
Let me just say this. I'm not, again, I think we were I've always said this, you were in a hole 15 feet down and we never realized it, but it takes a long time and a lot of money to climb out of that hole. Now, I'm not sure what it's going to take in Ron Smith's realm, what it's going to take to achieve that audit finalization. And again, for us, you've got so much manpower at the finance office. And again, I'm just saying, whatever it takes, either through Ron Smith and or our offices. And again, if we've got to contract other people to get our stuff done, our journal entries done, I will bring this to the superintendent, who will bring it to you, but it will be done.
I like it. Mike?
Jim, my question is, do you still believe that Ron Smith is the right company to be dealing with? I know it's a nightmare to even consider changing an accounting firm after what you've been through, but do they still have your confidence?
Mike, they do have my confidence. The other issue, if he said, look, I've lost confidence, I wanna have a new player here. I don't know that you could find another auditor for the state of Vermont. He's doing probably 98% of them. A lot of the firms have gone out of it because it's a specialization for school districts. And I guess I'm saying, I think Ron is okay and doing his work. I think we were so far behind in the whole process. And at one time, nobody was doing the work. And maybe some of it was due to COVID, but I'm sure there were a lot of issues. The work just didn't get done.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? David?
Almost not a question, it's a statement. There've been a number of municipal auditors in Vermont over the years, which have done budgets for WNESU entities. And quite bluntly, what happened is that Ron Smith came in, our HR Smith came in and undercut their prices. And they found the other ones found other more lucrative fields to pursue after that. So we are essentially, Mike, dealing with monopoly. And if we want to slap a September 30 completion date in the contract, I don't think he'll sign it. Why should he?
Priscilla?
Okay, but I think there's clarification on that because our books close or should close on June 30th. That's the end of the year. Yes, you might have to do a few journal entries after that, but if we're keeping our books properly in the business office, which with the new system, it's my understanding that since we started that July 1st, with that new system, we should be able to keep up with that and have those books in order. And if those books are in order, then I guess from June 30th to September 30th, you're saying is 3 months, and he should be able to review those and tell us if there's anything that additional that needed to be done. Is that correct?
Just for clarification, I'm saying I want in hand a printed audit report as of September 30th.
Thank you, Jim.
So a good reminder for the board, whoever will be here on September 30th, to make sure that we pressure that before September 30th. A lot of people here up for reelection. Jim, thank you for all of that, and thank you for sort of clarifying why our from the WNESU has gone down to $377,000. Any other questions for Jim? All right, Jimmy didn't give us any good news tonight.
I wish I had some.
We wish you were here.
I just appreciate all he's doing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Wow, tough.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have update
Can
on,
I ask you a quick question?
please.
Just in my mind to clarify some things. So the WNSU budget is, transportation, it's, special education. What else?
Please, Andy.
Food services,
Food services,
superintendent services.
yeah.
Fiscal services.
Finances.
Yeah.
Central office.
That's what I mean by superintendent service. So superintendent services is like curriculum, instruction, all, you know, Deb Carday and Shelley Wilson,
Yeah.
homeschool liaisons, grant services. So all of that fits into there. You have, and you also have financial services, which is Jim's office, transportation, food services, special education.
Great.
So, Rob, could you give this to Jamie? Or that's the WNSU, what he gave us last
Oh,
week.
right, okay. This is
thank
about
you.
Yeah,
And I to further answer your question, Jamie, I believe that, we asked the members of WNSU committee, which are June, myself, Priscilla's on Rockingham, but she's also on our board, and Mike, and we, asked Cheryl to do a deep dive into what we're gonna do to, help with that.
Right.
To, you know, our own self-audit. Anyway.
Great.
Anyone else? All right, I'm gonna move on to Kelly, if that's okay. Kelly, can you give us an update on the building? Any good news in there?
I have lots of good news.
Please.
Yeah. I'll follow up with him tomorrow. Yeah, so I've got 4 kind of things I want to speak to. So I'll maybe hold questions till the end, if that's okay.
Please.
So the first thing, I think the most pressing thing on folks' minds is really the water damage that we sustained due to the storm on the 10th. So just to provide a quick summary of what transpired and what was impacted and then kind of where we're at now. So yeah, we woke up on the morning of the 10th. We had water kind of all over the building. I think the primary areas that were hit were along the seam. So when you walk in the main hallway here, the C-wing hallway, kind of all along that seam that connects to the D or academic wing, we found water pretty much in every space that aligned there. So we had a little bit of water down here in the electrical room, had a little bit in the hallway, a little bit in the main offices, the tiles in the nursing offices collapsed due to water. Hallway, all the way down to the server room. Generator, yeah,
All the way to
all the way
the generator,
down.
the entire length of the building.
Yeah, the entire length of the building, you know, every electrical room, the fire panels, the whole thing was hit pretty hard. I think fortunately at this point, Servpro was on site that afternoon and worked through that first weekend and had completely cleaned up and done the initial demo work in the D wing and in the C wing. So they got right on it, cleaned it up. So we're still in the process of getting a few more ceiling tiles back up. And we need to complete the, we had to deconstruct 2 of the pillars, one in the library, one in the foreign languages wing. There was just a lot of drywall and wood paneling that was really impacted by the water. So all of that has been removed. So now it's just a question of getting it back up. So more cosmetic in nature at this point there. I think the primary thing that still needs to be addressed on this side of the building was the damage that we sustained in the server. So to be clear, that new server that we just got on board serves the entire district. So little touch and go there. But Ricky, Director of IT, and his team have been amazing in kind of keeping that up and going. But that is gonna have to be replaced and does obviously come with a pretty significant expense. So we're in process. Most recent conversation was with some
few folks coming in today. Insurance adjusters were here on site today doing a tour and kind of talking through that. So I would say things are moving remarkably fast in that regard. So then we switch over to the auditorium. That was the other kind of significant area. I know when we kind of first opened up those doors, right, you could literally hear the water from across the auditorium, just kind of pouring into parts of that space. The primary areas that were impacted there was in that back hallway that kind of separates the auditorium seating from the gymnasium. And that mezzanine that runs above it, the water was coming in through the roof and then kind of following the floor and coming down the seams on both sides. And so fortunately on the gym side, I'm saying fortunately because of the wood flooring in there, right? The water that came through on that side didn't hit the wood floor in any way, or we would be looking at a very different outcome here. It really just kind of hit the doorway and was very easy to clean and be addressed. The significant damage really came through on the other side, so that, and I'm happy to show anyone who's interested later if that's helpful, but that brick wall along the back seating, the water was coming through all the lights, basically that full length of the auditorium. So obviously damage there, ceilings are still pretty wet, but they're bringing in an electrician to kind of start that demo now. The other thing that sustained some damage in the auditorium was the wood paneling. So if you're facing the stage, the wood walls, which you now know to be veneer, wood veneer walls, took on a lot of water. So that Serpro team did a ton of work, got right on it. But unfortunately struggled at the outset to get that space up to the kind of heating threshold that they needed to dry out the auditorium. We got permission late last Thursday to bring in some additional resources, a generator, run some more heating, do some kind of concentrated pieces. So that prior to that intervention, we were only able to get it up to around 68, 70 degrees. The Serpro folks really needed it to be almost up to 90 to get to that drying threshold. With the reinforcements they brought in over the weekend, we were able to hit 90-degree threshold pretty quick. And so we just got the most current report about 15 minutes ago. They're seeing an actionable and positive impact in the drying there. So the stage was untouched, but it has been cleaned. They're still focusing on the walls. And again, they're bringing in the electrician to get a head start on that demo and electrical repair work in the back. Yeah, so that's it on Serpro in the water. It is my hope. We initially, at the outset, when they came on the 10th, we're told about a week and a half to get fully back online. Again, we had to extend that projection by a week. So we're hoping by this Friday that everything will be done in terms of cleaning, demo, new electrical. I mean, they've got all the seats pulled out, they're steam cleaning, repainting the ceilings. They're doing a tremendous amount of work in there. But we're hopeful that come this Friday, they should be done and we should have full access back to that space on Monday. Obviously, we've had to do this all in close consultation with BHB and the Department of Environmental Conservation. Again, going back to PCBs, kind of going back to what some of the feedback the University of Iowa gave us, right? PCBs are what they call a grasshopper chemical. They come out when it's hot. So I know when they first put forward the proposal to heat up the auditorium, I was like, oh no, right? We gotta be very careful here. But with the tenting and various safety pieces that Serpro put in, very close consultation with the Department of Environmental Conservation and BHB. We were able to do all that. So we're kind of giving them, if not daily, every other day updates on the work that's happening there. So they're able to review and weigh in on and share out any concerns that they've had. In our ongoing work with BHB and the Department of Environmental Conservation, I think there's two pieces looming, probably sometime in February. Some of this is contingent upon how the timeliness of the cleanup in the auditorium, but we are prepared to move forward with our quarterly air sampling. So that is scheduled again with BHB. So we do not have dates yet. Again, we're waiting to do that until we get the all clear from Serpro that they're out of that space and that temperature is back down to kind of normal operating conditions. Because what we don't want is for them to come in, right, and get any type of false test, right? Or a test that shows high PCBs, but is not indicative of our normal operating conditions. Then we could be looking at unnecessary closures of the rest of the building. We got to time that secondary air sampling carefully. The other thing that BHB has prepared and put forward to the state is our source characterization work. So that's a real important document. that outlines what what the testing folks are gonna come back in and specifically look at. So they've really honed in on what they feel is the source of PCBs in our building. So again, as soon as Serpro's out, then we'll kind of get that testing timeline on the books, but it's in the near future. So that's that. Other good news is we continue to work in very close consultation with Hutter Construction. So that's the firm that was hired to represent us or to do all the work in terms of our HVAC roof and science wing construction. I'm gonna pass around a summary now. So this one-page overview basically represents a really detailed preliminary timeline of what they anticipate doing and where, for how long, as it pertains to the HVAC and roof. They have hired a superintendent. His name is Les. He's great. He's already been on site. They're gonna start moving their kind of space, their units on site over the next probably week and a half. And they anticipate kicking off the work over the A wing, which is back over towards the shop area of our building, beginning around the 5th of February. So we are on track to start that work. Again, I think it's noteworthy that, I think it's important to know or to reiterate that, again, that HVAC and roofing work is gonna happen in tandem, and it's gonna happen in 4 phases. I think the other part that's noteworthy is that they do not, because they're planning to use, capitalize on existing ductwork in the building. We do not anticipate much, if any, disruption to the day-to-day inside the building. We really see the bulk of the disruption that could happen as being intentionally scheduled over the summer, where we'll need to limit traffic for safety concerns in and out of the building. That being said, things happen, right? And so one of the things that Hutter and Steve Horton has helped arrange that we'll commit to kind of get in a 2 to 3 week lead time. If they anticipate needing to be in the building and accessing ductwork or what have you, that could result in the need to displace the class for a day or 2. We're gonna have ample notice to minimize the disruption to staff and students. Excuse me. So, again, this document that just went around is specific to the HVAC and roofing project. We do not have one of these for the science project yet. What I can offer there is we do have an anticipated start time of April for that work. We did see, and I did meet with the science team just late last week to review the updated architectural plans and to kind of weigh in some of the questions that they had about needs in the spaces as it pertained to teaching demo stations and gas and water and things like that, and pick out some of the fixed units and things. So that feedback has been sent along back to the architects and the engineers, and as of late last week, we're still on track for an April start for that science construction. The last piece I'll speak to, and then I'd welcome questions. It's a generator. I am happy to report that our catalyst monitoring system has arrived. Again, that was a really critical component that was ordered probably about 9 months ago. And that was going to be added to our primary, what we consider our primary power, prime power generator. Forget the exact technical term. But in adding that catalyst monitoring system, that allowed us to move forward with the necessary stack testing and permitting that we needed to get back into the demand response program with Green Mountain Power, which could come with some significant cost savings for the school. So it's a very important step that was put in motion many, many months ago. Milton Cat was on point for that part. Fortunately, it took a long time to get into production here on site, but it's here. The electrician's been on site and done the work that they needed to do to get that operational. We're just missing something called thermal blanket. So hopefully we'll have that missing part in there you go. Yeah. Throw it on there, we'll move on. Yeah. Anyways, we're nearing completion on that, which I think is a really good thing. And again, it's been many, many months in motion. Yeah, we've already got the stack testing. That's the next step. Once that last part is in, we got to do our stack testing, and then we bring through DMEs. We've already got that contract lined up. It's ready to go once it gets the green light. And then in terms of the permitting, once we get that stack testing done, we've got the permitting work kind of all teed up with John Hingley and all 4. So we're, again, we've got all our ducks in a row and we're ready to move as soon as that last piece comes in. So welcome questions.
So before questions, I just want to piggyback what Kelly said. As far as the generator goes, it also is the school will now be an emergency shelter for, emergencies for all the local towns, basically, right? In the southern state, of Vermont. So that's great news. And then, did everyone, Andy sent out an email today. Did everyone get a chance to see it? It's one of his newsletters. Halfway down. Some of the things maybe you guys don't all read. I read it, Andy. It's a floor plan of what the science wing is gonna look like. So it's in your email. I would check it out. It looks really cool. It should be in everyone's email already, but that's cool. Nice job. Who was first? Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
First of all, Kelly, thank you for all your work and your help, between PCBs and water damage. You've had quite the year.
Yeah.
As we're looking at April for science, how does that impact? And I guess this would be a question for you or Andy, ESSER funds, because my understanding is the science wing is using ESSER funds.
Yeah, so I mean, we are on track. Steve Horton and Hunter are all aware, that September, the end of September is the drop dead date for ESSER funds. We anticipate spending the majority of the ESSER funds with the HVAC system on materials that all have to be pre-ordered anyway. And the timing of the science wing, the April start until September will give us plenty of time to do that. So.
Thank you.
Jim?
Kelly, I thought the roof project was supposed to start over the science wing. Can you talk about why that shifted to the shop area?
I don't recall specifics. I know that there was a reason and I don't
Yeah,
want to
okay.
misrepresent, but I
Yeah.
know it was not in consultation with Hunter. Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was determined because it would have been the least interruption.
I think that's why
If I
they.
may, I think Steve Horton had some plans based on where they were going, and then as they got into working with Hunter, but as the PCB thing emerged and then ebbed and flowed, that's where the
Things
decision
shifted.
was that, yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Yes, thank you, Jason. It's my recollection that the last time Steve Horton was in this room, we had quite a wide-ranging discussion of capital projects. And it is my recollection, which I have not bothered to check through the minutes, but maybe someone wants to do that, that this board voted to go out for bid specs on the science project, so that we would be in a position to seek bids from contractors for that work. Since I do not recall bid specs ever coming back to this board, I think that process may have been bypassed, possibly in the belief that Hutter is the general contractor, had the authority to do so. I'm certainly not gonna argue that one right at the moment, although I think it is kind of an interesting question. But what I am interested in is how we determine just how much money we're spending in the science area. So if someone in administration, Kelly or Andy or Steve Horton possibly knows what this board is committed to for the science project, it'd be really interested to know what it is and how that figure was derived, and actually whether it was derived through competitive bidding or whether that was no longer necessary.
So as far as what the board is responsible for, it's all grant funded. It's all grant funded, so the board is not responsible for any of the dollars. That was a question you just asked.
Correct.
So I'm just answering that question. As far as getting you the other stuff, I'll have to speak to Mr. Horton and get that information.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Andy, you were telling us that the science project, whatever it costs, all covered by grant funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this board here has no skin in that game. Nothing is coming out of any of our capital funds. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. Thank you.
To be very honest with you, I'm shocked because we've had this conversation for over a year, and that's been the conversation for over a year. So I'm happy to say it again, David, because I've said it numerous times, that the funding was coming from grant funds and not coming from local funds.
Then Andy, if I may ask, please, what happened to those bid specs?
I haven't received them yet from Steve.
What's that?
I have not received them yet from Steve.
You have not received them
From Steve.
from Steve, okay?
And so when you asked the last time, and the board asked, there was an agreement to get them, I asked Mr. Horton for them, and I have not gotten them from him yet.
But those bid specs, Andy, will also be covered by grant funding?
Correct.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Thank you.
Hold on one second. So Jamie, could I ask that on the next, meeting, we get, this, some sort of reminder that we have to have that as an agenda item to get those bid specs. So we can make sure we, just it'll remind me to remind Andy, that's all. Thank you, Jamie. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, the minutes from November 13th reflect the science project has 1,350,000 allocated. The HVAC system has 3,017,275. And any other funds that are not out are pushed into these projects. The bids have not been finalized yet, and we still need to get approval from the board once bids are finalized. But then we also noted that Hutter Construction hired to bid out. And those were being sought from different companies, and that was on November 27th.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Forever ago, it seems like.
Yeah. Mary, Tanya, anything, for you guys, any questions now for Kelly?
Not for Kelly, no. I would love it if there'd be a way we could have some sort of microphone system to override the constant noise. I wear hearing aids, big disclosure, and I've had tremendous difficulty hearing, particularly the other side of the room, but pretty much everybody. It's very hard to hear other meetings. This is great for the public. I don't know how well, but I've listened for years this way. It's very hard to hear these meetings. I think in terms of disclosure, it would be wonderful if we could actually hear what we're all saying.
Great question. Great statement. Thank you.
I think the public hears us better than we actually hear ourselves in the room. I go back and listen to the tapes and hear it so that I'm clear on anything I haven't heard.
Kelly?
I was just gonna offer that, we're slated to get, I think, 2 voice amplification units for use in some of our classrooms, I think one of which is mobile. So when that's here, we can test it out in that space, and maybe the board could.
I
include
wondered
that
how
in the-
this is affecting learning. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good input. Thank you. Tanya, anything?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else for Kelly? Anybody? All right. Thank you, Kelly, for everything that you do. All right, up next, articles for presentation, annual meeting, outline informational. So I just wanted to, everyone has the articles, correct? I sent them out, or sorry, Nicole sent them out. And I was tasked at the last meeting to get a hold of our lawyers, and which I did, and they helped. I gave them the ideas, and they helped write them up. So just want to skip down to Article 5. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4 are pretty self-explanatory. So, oh, sorry, I don't want to skip over 1. You hear a report from the Bellows Falls Union High School District officers and to take action therein. So last year, I believe, if I recall, which seemed like yesterday, some people read something that Molly gave to us. This year, what I would like to do is, since I don't want to do all the talking, you guys, that we're one board, we're a whole unit, a team. Everyone is on committees. So David, you chair the budget committee. I would like for you to give a sermon, let's say, on the budget committee, and Priscilla, your policy, junior negotiations, but you can't talk about that. And who else? On the side, so policy committee. So I'd like to just kind of do that. So prepare for that, okay? Because I'm just gonna point to you and just have you go over that stuff for the public. Sorry, Deb, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna interrupt you. But these are due to the printer by the 30th of January. So next week.
Yeah, that's why we have our meeting on the 30th. We have another meeting on the 30th.
So if that hurry up and write, is that what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I hope that's okay with everyone. I'm giving you enough notice, because again, it's important for me that you guys, speak up and just your impact on the board, your, on whatever committees you were on. And, go over that stuff. Jamie, you chaired the, norms, committee, so I think the public deserves a right of, why we did that. And if you can give, your input, that'd be great. Just have it ready for the board to review or just kind of look at next week.
So Article 1 should say to hear the reports.
So here the reports.
But that would be February 26th that we're giving those reports.
No, the reports will be in the book, printed, in the printer, right?
I don't think, and
No.
I would have to double check,
I think we,
I,
I know the
we-
municipality does, it's why.
I don't believe we actually printed reports.
Yeah, we.
In our, and it's just been an oral report.
Ah, okay,
So,
so they're not due by the end of the month,
no, I think,
just this document.
26th,
I think Jason wanted us to be able to review them before the actual meeting. Is that, was that your intent?
Yeah, I think it's important that, so it's no surprise. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Don't,
So you, but they would.
my intention is not to trash anybody here.
yeah, they're,
I was not clear.
no, they're
I was
orals,
printed.
they're orals, they're not printed. You
Okay,
don't, you,
all right.
you are not required to provide us a written report by the end of the month.
I think it's important that we put everyone here puts in a lot of hard work. I think it's important that we get that message out there of the positive things that we're doing. And I think that's really important. There are some negatives, but we gotta give the positives too.
Grounds and maintenance.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, right.
5:30 on the 30th?
Yes.
Is that why we have to have a meeting a week from today, instead of every 2 weeks?
Yeah, there's another reason. I
There's
think,
another reason.
so I'll just get to that. On the 30th, I believe that's the deadline that we have to have these articles done, right, Andy? Is that? with
I think
30
we,
days-
I
30
think
days, 40 days?
Nicole and I, our hope was that you would be able to finalize them tonight. Most boards have been able to finalize them
To get to the printer,
so that we can get them to the printer, because we have to get them to the printer on Monday. The
Monday.
30th.
the 30th.
We have to get them to the
Oh,
printer.
see, so the meeting.
So Andy's saying if we're really good, we don't have to have a meeting on the 30th. Everyone hear that? Yeah.
So I am prepared. I was sent with a copy to amend as we speak,
Okay.
and then did not let you leave without signing.
I like how you said that, David.
It's kind of point of order, Jason. We don't actually have an action item on tonight's agenda that I am aware of to approve the annual meeting warning. And I'm kind of looking in Deb's direction here, because I suppose that we could act outside the open meeting law and then ratify it
We
on
can,
January 30.
so that's what we would do, because it should say for action, but it doesn't say that, it's in the maintenance, so we could take action. And then on the next meeting, we will ratify it, it's doubtful that there's, I mean, and it would be before we actually take any action, I mean, before the voting action, so it should be fine. But, I don't prefer it, I prefer that we actually had it on the agenda, but we really don't have time, because this needs to go to the printer the morning of the 30th.
So we can do a special.
Jason, it does say discussion action at number 8 at the top, so anything under there
Ah,
is
so that
actually.
should cover that, then we don't need to ratify it.
No. It's discussion action.
That makes sense, thanks, Priscilla.
Okay, so I'm just gonna skip down the 5. Oh, sorry, David, you have a question?
In that case, thank you for the catch there, Priscilla. I suppose that's correct. And I would like to move the annual meeting warning for adoption by this board.
Okay, so
It's got blanks,
What's that?
it's got blanks. At the beginning of the warning, it says, to act on articles blank through blank, and then our Australia ballot blank through blank, we have to complete that, and we have to
Couldn't
change
we
articles.
just ratify those things in January? Because you correct me if I'm wrong. We know what our money special articles look like, and the rest of it's boilerplate. And you can just use last year's boilerplate. Okay. I would like to remake my motion.
go ahead, David.
Okay, my motion is to this board adopt the annual meeting warning and direct its administration to fill in the blanks.
Good, so there's a motion on the floor and a discussion on it.
Administration or board chair?
The board. Let's feel- we should fill in the
Okay,
article.
how about the board chair in consultation with the administration, fill in blanks? That's Rob's friendly amendment and I accept it.
Okay. The motion on the floor, Priscilla, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I would like to just simply fill those in. It's really easy. I
Yeah,
mean, you've got February 26, 2024 at 7 to act on, you have to act on Article 5. Yeah, but you have to act on Article 5 by Australian ballot. That's the
So,
requirement.
so this first half paragraph would be Articles 1 through 4,
Or 1
1 through 4, and
through
then 5 through 7.
4 and 5 through 7.
Yep, that's simple, stuff that we do in the
And
floor.
then
stuff that we
number
pass
2
in.
there, the Australian ballot on Article 5.
Look at everybody work together.
So,
I
time out.
just want to clarify, because there's,
Article
It-
6
it-
through 6 and 7, I'm sorry,
so it's,
Five,
it's-
six, and
so the first paragraph is Articles 1 through 4.
Right,
and 6 to 7.
no, 5 to 7. That's the
No,
money.
because you're doing Australian ballot for 5.
Right,
So
yes.
only 5 is Australian ballot.
Yes.
No.
No, 5, 6, and 7 are all money articles. They're typically on the Australian ballot. Or-
That can be acted on at our regular meeting, and we've
So-
always done it in the past that way until we had COVID.
So, no, time out. So last year we acted, everything was Australian ballot, and I haven't lived here my whole entire life, but I've lived here since 1999, and any meeting that I've ever went to, when they don't do Australian ballot, there's 12 people that show up and they're voting for the whole entire community of 5,000 in our community. I think it's a good idea to have all the voters come in and say, and be able to vote. That's my opinion. I think that David's original motion is to, David, please restate that.
Motion is that this board approve the annual meeting warning. And the chair, if I have this correctly, Rob, in consultation with administration, fill in the blanks.
That's why the motion on the floor. Any,
I would ask for an amendment to do that with the board at this time, the numbers at this time.
we have an amendment on the floor, to,
Oh, I would, for the sake of expediency, I am willing to accept Priscilla's amendment as an additional friendly amendment, Jason.
so let's fill in the blanks. Well, we have to vote on that, correct?
Technically, yes.
Yeah, we have to vote on Priscilla's amendment to.
Well, he's accepted it.
I mean,
Accepted it as well.
So we have to vote on the original motion.
The original.
All right,
Wait,
So-
with with Priscilla's amendment?
With
We're
both
voting for
amendments.
your-
With both
Okay, can you say your amendment again?
We're gonna vote on it to accept finalize the warning with the numbers, the board filling in the numbers.
so we're
With the
gonna fill,
board,
we're gonna fill in the numbers right now,
okay.
and then we're gonna vote, right?
Well,
Well, we're gonna vote first.
we're gonna vote
to do that.
first, because we gotta vote to do
All
that.
right, so we're all here. I don't think we need to call roll call. So all those in favor of the motion, please say, yay.
Aye.
Any nay? Any abstained? All right, motion passes. June?
I have a question about Article 6. Shouldn't it say fiscal year 2023 surplus?
No, it's actually fiscal year.
It is
2022, yeah.
2022. Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
say
the
that.
WNESU surplus, but it came back to our board, so wouldn't it be our surplus for 2023?
We are going on the language that was provided to us from, the work that Ron Smith had done with Jim Zena, so this is, and vetted through the attorney.
Okay.
Yep. I did not write. I did. In consultation with you guys. All right, so we have, now we have a motion on the floor to accept it. We're gonna put that dates in, all right?
Right, now
So
you're-
not, we're done with the motion.
All right, Priscilla, why don't you give me the top one, the articles 1 through 7, correct?
You're going to discuss all of them, so probably it should say 1 through 7 for the top thing, and then I personally would only do 5 because that's all that's required to do the Australian ballot. I would vote on the others at our meeting.
So, okay, yeah, then that's hard to write, articles 1 through whatever.
I would just do 1 through 7, and then the Australian ballot on Article 5 at their respective local polling
Yeah, but if you
places.
go 1 through 7, that includes 5,
Yeah, because you read it at that anyway, you don't actually.
but you don't actually act on it.
You don't
Yes,
act on it,
but it
so you
does
can
say-
do 1 through 4, comma, 6 through 7.
Yeah, that makes sense, 1 through 4 and 6 through 7.
Okay, I am thoroughly confused.
Me too.
I'm on it, I'm on it.
Did you get it? So all those will be
1
acted on,
4.
and 5 will be acted on, will be on Australian now. That's what you.
I'm not trying to confuse things.
Yeah.
Could we just say 1 through 6 and then whatever we're voting on, make that the 7th?
No, so we went around on this.
By the numbers.
You want your full budget to be the first thing to get voted on. Yes, we had that discussion at the office.
Just to make it clear. Yep.
So I just want to make sure, so are you, so there's not another motion on the floor, you just,
No, we're just.
Fill in the blanks.
Right now.
And 5 by Australian ballot. Okay.
so why is 6 not through Australian ballot?
Yeah.
That was a
Because-
lawyer's suggestion.
Because we don't have to do that one by Australian ballot. The only one you have to do by Australian ballot is your actual budget.
But
The other
I
ones you
prefer,
can do.
I prefer all the taxpayers.
And if you
out
prefer
there.
that, that's one thing. I prefer the other way, so that's the way I said it.
So
I think you put a motion on the floor.
David, put a motion on the floor.
For 1 through 4 and 6 through 7, and then number 5 at the respective local polling place.
David, can you put a motion on the floor?
I don't know what the question is.
I thought you said you.
Didn't Priscilla just put a motion, Priscilla just put a motion on the floor.
Point of order, we got too many voices going.
Priscilla, can you restate your motion?
To fill in, I motion that we fill in the blanks, articles 1 through 4 and 6 through 7, and then by Australian ballot on Article 6. Article 5, I'm sorry,
Right.
Article 5.
So I just want to clarify, you want people to go Australian ballot at their polling places, you want 6 on the floor with whoever shows up that
5
day.
on the floor.
Six-
5 is the polling place, 6 and 7 will be at ours. Yeah, we've got enough controversy on the other stuff right now. We need to.
And June 30th.
June?
So how do we know, that everybody that goes to our annual meeting are actual registered voters? Does that mean the town clerks from all of the districts are there to
Yes.
check in
Yeah.
your?
Yes.
Yes.
Like I show up, I can't do anything.
Right.
I gotta walk in, say
Right.
hi, and I just go, because I'm not a voter.
Yeah, and you need permission to talk.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Article 6 needs to be corrected. Andy already knows that, right? So from 531,000
She sent
to.
out one.
Okay,
I have
corrected,
correct.
I didn't see the corrected. one.
I have it's 377,000.
That's all I care, 755 and 17.
Okay, so there's a motion on the
I don't
floor.
need a 17.
Any other,
Oh, sorry,
17 cents.
I don't know, that's what I saw.
any other discussion on that? All right, I am gonna do a roll call on that one. David, how do you vote on Priscilla's motion? And the motion is, floor vote, Article 6 and 7, Article 5 at polling places.
Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
June,
No.
Deb,
Aye.
Rob,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tanya,
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. So Andy, you can make those.
Already done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
It's easy to go back.
That's true, yeah.
so is there anything else we need to discuss on this?
And,
Done?
oh, does it need to be, Anna, because I'm assuming you've got to put today's date on.
I already did.
And you already did.
So I just want to verify with you all, just because there's a couple, it sounds like there's a couple copies out there, so I just want to make sure I got my numbers correctly. Article 5, the dollar amount would be $7,941,496. Article 6 would be $377,755. That's what I have. I heard you say 17.
I don't care about the penny myself, but.
Okay. Article 7. Thank you for the work you all do. Board Chair 800, Board Member 700, District Chair, Treasurer 800, District Clerk 125.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. All right, we're on to director's comments. Mary, I'm gonna start on your side.
I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Mary. Tanya?
No comment.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Mike?
Sure. I would start with apologizing to Mary, it's Mary Lou, correct? Yeah, and I appreciate the comments in terms of basically holding us, the board, accountable for our behavior, because I do think that that's number one as far as a job here. So for me to have used profanity, doesn't matter why, you know, I got caught up in the moment. There was some name calling going on, blah, blah, it doesn't matter, but it was wrong. I apologize. One thing I won't apologize for, though, is I am here to stand up for the taxpayers who elected me. And I believe that the board, one of the board's big responsibilities is to stand up for the taxpayer. So I'm going to continue to do that, hopefully reasonably within the context of what we tried to do in terms of the budget, which I felt was a middle of the road budget in the context of all the things that we were being hit with and will continue to be hit with. So that's pretty much all I had to say. Most importantly, the apology to folks like Mary Lou and the community. And that's, you have to own up when you make a mistake, you have to own it. So thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you, Mike. Jamie?
I don't have anything today.
Thank you, Jamie. Rob?
Yeah, I just want, I want to bring, back in November of 2023, we did norms and goals, and I just want to read number 7 to our board and then ask for some consistency. Number 7 says the board of directors will defer to the board chair as the voice of the board's communication with the media, conveying positive things about our school and information on the business that has been voted on as requested. Individual board members' opinions should not be part of the communication with the media, as it can contribute to a lack of trust of the whole board and its processes. And I just think, even though we haven't had these goals and norms for the whole year, we did agree on them in November, and I would ask for professionalism of all of our board members to please be abiding by those policy norms and goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Deb?
Nothing to do.
Thank you, Deb. Jim?
I do. Everyone's frustrations are very high. Change is super hard. Me personally, I like change myself. But with that being said, some things, just because some things have been that way for a long time, doesn't mean that it was correct or that it can't be improved on. Last year, when the board supported a principal change, the community was very upset with the board. But now it seems that people have seen that wasn't such a bad decision. With the budget proposal, again, people are really upset with us. But if you be patient, I believe that it'll all work out for all stakeholders, our students first and foremost. This board doesn't want to hurt our students. Everyone on this board is here for the students. We want better results for all of them. We want them to be safe, have the best education that they possibly could. And I personally don't believe that any of the decisions that we've made, including the budget, will hurt this. It was stated a couple of times at the last meeting that the board should have come to us to ask us what the correct facts were. It was implemented several times that the facts that the board was presented with in preparing the budget was inaccurate data. Number one, since I've been on this board going on 2 years, I have brought up several times that I would like all of the board supervisors to not board supervisors, department head supervisors in the building to come to the board and talk to us. And that hasn't been done. And another point, we cannot, as board members, go and talk to a teacher. We have to go through administration. We can't go and talk to them, and say, hey, so-and-so told us this data. Is this correct? That's not our role. We cannot go talk to the staff members. That's why I feel it's very important that they come and talk to us. I appreciate Justin coming tonight. I know he was uncomfortable with it, but I think the only way that the board and the teachers are going to come to an understanding, and there are some things that we can't divulge to the public, but they just have to trust that we are all in this for the kids and the staff. And sometimes we're gonna have to agree to disagree. However, this can be done with respect and civility. I already said that. Thank you, and stay warm, healthy, safe, and go Terriers.
Thanks, June. Priscilla?
June just mentioned, a comment that I know when I went to my principal back when I was teaching in this building was sometimes the result of our conversation, because I was always advocating for my students, strongly advocating for my students. And it was, I think we're going to just have to agree to disagree. And sometimes we do that as adults. We do that with respect. We do that with caring. But yes, name calling and some of the things that happen sometimes are not part of being a true considerate adult. And we need to be really, really aware of what we're doing. One of our policies says that we should never disparage faculty, administration, or other board members. It's a shame when it happens. And I think we are here, and it's important that we set that example for our students that are in this building. And I feel like they're our students because all of our board members, share in that responsibility for our students. I know that the members of this board care about them. I know that we're all here because we do care. We spend a lot of hours. We get paid pennies, and that's okay because we do care. As long as we come in and we respect the other person's opinion and we don't jump on them for what they want to say, then we are being a good board member. As long as we respect parents when they come to us, we are willing to listen to them and hear them out. We can't always do something about what they're bringing to us. But if we listen, they'll know we care. And sometimes we can do something for them. And if we're able to do something for them, then that's the best that we can ever have. Always said if I could help even one student in a day, I was doing my job. Well, the same thing goes for board members. If we can help the public, if we can help our students, if we can help administration, we are doing our job. It's a wonderful community to live in. I grew up here. I love this community. And as long as each one of you gives every bit of your all for that community, I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. David?
Well, unusually I embedded my director's comments in email. It's all there. You got the verbal portion of it under the finance discussion tonight, so I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, David. I just have a couple quick things. One, want to thank again each and every one of this board. It can be tough when people are coming in and beating you up, and it's like in my opinion is it's like it's almost the Facebook reality world where what you just did positive a few minutes ago is already forgotten. And we move on to the negative. And I know who I am. I know that I'm a positive can-do person. And anyone who knows me, who interacts with me and tries to get to know me, understands that I am the type of person that will get things done in a positive way, not in a negative way, but a positive way. And I think what people are forgetting is the fact that the gym is open. We did not miss one basketball game, one basketball practice. We did that in consultation with the administration here. We did that. Auditorium is open. The school is fully open. And I, went out on a limb and said we were gonna do that, and we did, all of us. So that's positive. And, we did a lot of things that no board, in my opinion, where I've seen has done to continue marching forward with what we're trying to do for our students. I met with a gentleman and he said, at the end of the day, the decisions we make is about the students. And I believe that. And it's not easy. Everyone here knows that's not easy. And I just, again, I thank you all for your service. I have decided that I am going to run again. And I hope that everyone who is up for re-election decides to run again, because, I think that we're actually all a pretty darn good team, and we all care about each other, in my opinion. We have differences of opinion, we just do. It's part of being humans. And, I think Kelly, I think that you're doing a fabulous job here. And I was told at the WNSU meeting to add the tagline so far, because we were consulted to say that. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and saying you're doing a fabulous job here, and I appreciate everything you do. And I think the WNESU needs to help us out. And I believe that we can do that. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. And thank you for that. That's all the comments I have. Now we need to make a motion to go into executive session, but
It's a point of order.
yes,
I thought I heard a 4-4 on that motion. Is that correct on
it's
that?
a 4-4 and I broke the title, yes.
Okay, all right.
Correct. I had Deb is 1, 2, 3, 4. No was Rob, Jamie, I think June was a no, Priscilla was a no, and Mike abstained, and I was a yes. I think we got that. So can somebody make a motion, and who are we inviting in?
I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of labor relations and where the premature knowledge would put us at a disadvantage under 1 VSA 313.
Good.
And invite Andy and Kelly, if that makes sense to you. It's a brief discussion, no action to be taken.
That's your motion.
That's it.
All those, any questions or?
I'm-
June?
I'm gonna recuse myself because I don't feel that this is in the best interest of our negotiations.
Thank you, June. You coming back? There you go.
The end of the meeting, I'm out of here.
She's our representative, so there's no point.
Yeah, so if we come out of it and we announce the date of our next board meeting, which Andy said we were good tonight, so probably not gonna be the
She's
third.
our representative, there's no point.
So she's leaving. What is she saying? There's no one from there. Yeah, the motion's on the floor. What do we do now?
I think motion's on the floor. Let's take a vote. All those in favor? Let's take a roll call. David?
I'm abstaining, but I need to explain my abstention. I have nothing to say, can't be said in open session.
Okay. Priscilla?
No, we don't have a representative.
Well,
Wait, you're on You're on this board and you're also in negotiations.
I'm not your representative.
Deb,
I'm gonna say yes, because I made the motion.
Rob,
No.
Jamie,
No,
Mike, can I make a comment or is it inappropriate to have a comment in the middle of the voting process? Okay, I'm gonna abstain.
Then I haven't made it.
Tanya,
Abstain, I guess. I'm very confused.
okay, Mary?
I'm really looking forward to the information, so I'm gonna say yes.
I have yeses, 1, 2 yeses. 2 noes, 3 noes. And 3 abstain. So,
So that's enough.
so what if I vote yes?
Abstain,
It
well.
still fails.
It still fails, there are some. That's
Fail in the.
All right, so that means we're gonna be talking about our open session, right?
I would just like to say, because I made the motion, that I don't understand why the negotiating team and that person has her backup or have their backup about simply being forthcoming. They don't have to give us numbers, dollars and cents, and that sort of thing, but the general gist of where things are going, we are the board, we have to make the final decision. Doesn't make sense to us, doesn't make sense to me, that we have no understanding, and like it says, some secret cadre, that we can't understand where it's headed, when we voted on a 3.5% budget increase, and we don't know where that money is going to come from when things go sideways, if that was the case, because we just don't have any. And that is my understanding, and as a person who's been on 3 negotiating teams for the school, I don't understand the point of not having input, which we have never had the opportunity to give input to our negotiating member, who has now disappeared because she was upset by the request to go into the executive session. That's all I have to say.
Well, you gave information
Excuse me,
before.
let's
we
go through
started.
Jason. I just wanted to make that comment because I made the motion. I don't want your response because you already told me you do not represent us.
I'm just saying to Jason that because the team made that agreement, they can't unless they do negotiate in bad faith. And because it's at that point, and there was already some stuff in the paper that could have led us to bad faith if it was our fault. We're just trying to be extremely careful.
So, Mike, go ahead. Before I comment.
I think, maybe following up on what Priscilla's saying is, perceptions count. So I think the bottom line is the board retains the ultimate veto on whatever comes out of that committee. This is gonna be a long process. There'll be time for the committee to report out to the board. If the board doesn't like what they have to say, they can veto it. So, I do think it would be helpful to the committee to have some input from the board, just like any committee, to know if we bring back X, Y, and Z, it's got no prayer of passing. So I think there's that piece of it. Giving any kind of update on a process that's in motion is like trying to watch a tire. You're really not gonna get, any real sense of where things are at. But I, as a member of the committee, the negotiating committee, I'd love to get feedback from our committee. I don't know how we go about doing that, whether that's an executive session, et cetera. But for the committee to feedback out information at this point in time, I just don't think it's productive. So it's catch-22 in my mind. I'm not sure how to solve it.
Anybody else?
so you'd be interested in maybe having some kind of session where we come up with any other negotiating tactics, but not you reporting back to us, because that feels like bad faith.
Or
the
things
teachers.
like the lines in the sand,
Uh-huh.
if you bring to
Yeah.
us X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z.
Yeah,
We're gonna vote it down.
so it sounds like maybe an agenda where we discuss, not instead of asking for a report back from them, but for us to go into an executive session to talk about what we could put on the table.
What
Okay.
the board is looking at.
Jason, as I recall, that is actually where we landed. That was that we would have an opportunity to speak to the member to let that person understand where we would like to see it go. We have not, as a board, had any opportunity to give front-loading information to the negotiating member. And
I think clearing it up, and
That's-
saying
that would've made
it's a
it easy.
listening session.
Mhm.
It's not a question Q and A.
Yes.
It's listening only by the negotiation team. I think that's legit.
So I was gonna say exactly what Deb said is, you know, we were never given an opportunity to do all those things. We were, hey, I don't even know when are they meeting? Don't even know how many times. Don't even know it was discussed, but yes, just like any other committee that comes back to the board gets to vote on it. So, what happens if, to your point, if they, hey, this is a great idea, come back to the board and we're like, no, and then it's like going back to square one again. So I think it's important that we should have been able to given the opportunity to give some input on, our desire as a whole, as a board. That's it. So,
Would it be helpful if we did a exec session where maybe, Mike and I took some notes and then we hand it to June and simply do it that way?
I'd love June to be here also.
I would
So
like her
I
to be
think
here,
if we
but
could-
since she's left and since.
If we could couch it
We're not-
as
we don't
something
have
that
another
was a
meeting
listen
for a while.
only,
well,
you know, input only.
we've
That-
already defeated this,
Yeah.
So we could do a listening session and be different.
so sometimes typical of this board, it takes us a couple meetings to get it right. So, Kelly, don't have over there. David,
Yeah, I'm curious. Are the ground rules, also embargoed?
I don't know.
I wouldn't think so.
because we haven't seen those.
I'd be interested to see where they are.
We can ask the fair about that.
Mary, Tanya, anything on this?
You're just wondering about our next agenda, what's gonna be on it? Lots more to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely, okay, I'm gonna move on from that. It's been a semi-long night. Our date of our next meeting, it will be, I'm just gonna put it as to be determined. The 30th is gonna be probably not there. We do have that day slated. I definitely want to get in a feel for when Priscilla have the policies done and then do it correctly, our meetings based correctly off of that. I think that's important so that we meet our timelines before March.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
I'm gonna get with you to see when our timelines are, and then we'll get back to the board on when our next meeting should be, so we're in sync with what you're doing.
The policies
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
think that makes sense.
Well, we can approve that one, but I don't think it makes any difference on the, class things at this point, right at today. So, yeah.
From everything I heard today and what I know, you should be fine on the 12th to have all those policies.
To 12.
Talk to you.
That Monday?
That is your normally scheduled.
Normally scheduled.
Priscilla, good job on doing all that correctly. Nice job, getting all that timeline done. Appreciate
Not
it.
necessarily a very good series, I think I
Yep.
mentioned.
Getting renewed.
So we're gonna, we're gonna call the meeting adjourned at 7:44. I need to sign something maybe, or does anybody want to do a tour?
At this time, yeah. Otherwise,
Oh.
water damage, I saw plenty of that with my house.
If somebody's